Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The jungle steamed like a wound under foreign suns. Marcus Reeve drove his vibro sword through the raider's shoulder, pinning him against the twisted metal of the cargo hauler. Blood, purple, not red, splattered across scorched steel. The blade hummed, molecular edge vibrating so fast it cut bone like wet paper. "Where are the others?" Marcus growled, pressing his boot against the raider's chest. Around them, smoke rose from 3 bodies, their weapons still cooling in the mud. The raider's blue skin had gone gray. His eyes, yellow with vertical pupils, weren't on Marcus. They were fixed on something behind him, something half buried in the wreckage. A cage, reinforced steel, the kind used for quarantine zones. The lock was intricate, bio-sealed, designed to keep something contained. Marcus checked his scanner. The display flickered, numbers counting down in harsh red. 6 minutes, 43 seconds until automatic release. Whatever was inside would get out, with or without his help. "What were you moving through my sector?" Marcus twisted the blade. The raider screamed, the sound wet and broken. It wasn't worth it," the raider gasped. His voice cracked, terror making it thin. "The money, nothing's worth..." "What's in the cage?" The raider's breath hitched, his pupils dilated, and when he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "Please, kill me before she gets out." Marcus frowned. He'd interrogated dozens of raiders over the years, worked the outer colonies where desperation made men monsters. But this fear felt different, too raw, too absolute. The kind of terror that came from seeing something worse than death. He pulled the sword free and knocked the raider unconscious with the hilt. The man slumped and Marcus turned toward the cage. Steam hissed from ruptured coolant lines as he moved closer. The cage was partially embedded in the hauler's cargo bay, surrounded by shattered crates marked with symbols he didn't recognize. Biological containment protocols. Transport permits from a world he'd never heard of. His fingers found the lock mechanism, moving on instinct. Pressure points, override sequences, weak spots. Something deep inside him whispered to stop. The latch clicked. The heavy door groaned open, and something inside shifted. From the darkness came a sound that wasn't a breath. It was a laugh, soft and broken. Marcus stepped back, hand tightening on his sword. Inside, crouched in the corner, was a girl. Blue skin like the raider, but different. Silver hair tangled across her face, matted with sweat and dirt. Her body was marked with scars, some healed into pale lines, others fresh and weeping. She wore rags that might have once been clothing. When she looked up, there was no relief in her eyes, only naked despair. "What have you done?" she whispered in broken common. "You should have left me locked." Marcus lowered his sword slightly. "I'm rescuing you. They had you in a cage. The cage wasn't for me." She stood on unsteady legs. Her silver eyes caught the weak light filtering through the smoke. "It was for you, for all of you." He thought it shock, delirium, the words of someone too long imprisoned. "My name's Marcus Reeve," he said gently. "You're safe now. I can get you to a medical facility." "I am Ilara," she replied, pressing herself against the back wall of the cage. "And you just made the biggest mistake of your life." Something cracked in the jungle beyond the wreck, a branch breaking under weight, then another. Something was moving toward them, slow and deliberate. Ilara turned her head sharply toward the trees, every muscle in her body going taut. "They've already found us," she whispered. Marcus moved to the edge of the wreck, scanning the tree line. The jungle on this world was dense, violent. Plants that could kill, soil that ate metal, air thick enough to drown in. 3 moons hung in the sky like blind eyes. "Who found us?" "The ones who bought me." Her voice was flat. "The ones who paid to keep me locked." "Then we run." "You run," she said quietly. "I stay in the cage. It's safer." "Not happening." Marcus grabbed her wrist, thin, cool to the touch, and pulled her toward the opposite side of the wreck. "I don't leave people behind." She stumbled, weak from confinement, and he caught her. For just a moment, their eyes met. Hers were silver all the way through, just liquid metal reflecting his face back at him. "You don't understand what you're protecting," she said. "Then explain it while we move." Voices echoed through the jungle, calling to each other in a language he didn't know. Torches flickered between trees, at least a dozen, maybe more. Marcus pulled Ilara into the undergrowth. Behind them, the voices grew louder, more organized. These weren't raiders. These were hunters. By nightfall, the jungle closed around them like a throat. They moved through mud and roots, pursued by shapes that materialized and vanished between the trees. The hunters used no lights now, just thermal scanners. Marcus could hear the soft ping of their equipment. He'd fought wars on 3 different worlds. But this was different. This was a hunt, and they were prey. Ilara walked ahead of him, barefoot, feeling the ground with each step. When he stumbled near what looked like solid ground, she caught his wrist and pulled him back. His boot touched the surface and it gave way, a pit of sharpened stakes hidden beneath false moss. "How did you know?" he whispered. She didn't answer, just kept moving. The jungle had no mercy. Neither did the hunters. Marcus's leg wound throbbed. Ilara's old wound opened, blood seeping through her rags. He stopped, tore his sleeve, and bound it tight. She flinched but didn't pull away. He shared his last canteen. She handed him bitter roots from the soil, things that tasted like metal but kept him going. They didn't speak. They survived. Rain began, not as drops but as a deluge, warm and thick. Marcus spotted it, a cave mouth, half hidden behind fallen trees. He pulled Ilara inside. The cave cut the wind. Marcus collapsed against the stone wall, pain flaring through his leg. Ilara shivered. Her skin had taken on a strange pallor. Marcus shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She stiffened, then slowly pulled it tighter. The jacket smelled like him, sweat and metal, and something that reminded her of before the facility, before the cage, when her mother used to wrap her in blankets and tell her she was beautiful, before she knew what she really was. For the first time since he'd opened the cage, she met his eyes directly, not as prisoner or predator, but as something uncertain, almost fragile. "Why did you open the cage?" "Because you were locked in it." "That's not a reason. It's the only one I need." She studied him. "You're a fool. I've been called worse. You don't know what I am." "Then tell me." She looked away. "I can't. Can't or won't. Both." Outside, shapes moved through the rain, dark silhouettes circling the cave mouth. Marcus counted at least 6. They weren't advancing, just watching. "They won't come in," Ilara whispered. "Why not?" "Because they know what happens when I'm cornered." The hunters maintained their vigil through the night. Marcus kept his sword across his lap. Ilara didn't sleep. She sat with her back against the wall, body tense, hands clenched. "Ilara," he said quietly, "what are you afraid of?" "Everything," her voice cracked. "Every moment, every breath. These hunters, it's not them." She looked at him, and something broke behind her eyes. "It's me. It's always been me." A rustle echoed from outside, different from the rain. The shapes were moving, advancing, weapons raised. Marcus stood and moved to the cave mouth. He could see them now, 6 figures in tactical gear, faces covered, carrying pulse rifles. One raised a hand, and the others stopped. "Marcus Reeve," the figure called out. Female voice clipped and professional. "Colonial Patrol Officer, Sector 79. We have no quarrel with you." "Then leave," Marcus called back. "We can't do that. The cargo you released is property of the Vane Consortium. Return it and you walk away." "She's not cargo. She's dangerous, Mr. Reeve. More than you can possibly understand." "Then help me understand." The figure was silent for a moment. "You opened the cage. You made the choice. Now live with the consequences." She lowered her hand and the other hunters raised their weapons. Marcus turned, reaching for Ilara. "Get to the back." "Marcus." Her voice stopped him cold. It had changed, rougher, lower, almost not hers. "Why do they want you so badly?" He turned slowly. She was standing now, the jacket fallen from her shoulders. Her eyes had gone dark, not black, but empty. "Ilara?" Her lips moved. "Because I'm the last one." The smell hit him first. Blood, fear, something organic and wrong. Then the sound of bones shifting under skin, wet cracks like branches breaking. Blue flesh darkened, rippling. Chitinous plates emerged along her spine. Her fingers lengthened, claws pushing through. Her face stretched, jaw unhinging, eyes drowning in black until nothing human remained. Marcus staggered back, his sword shaking. The creature that had been Ilara looked at him once, recognition and apology and hunger all mixed, then turned toward the cave mouth, toward the hunters. She moved like violence made fluid. One moment in the cave, the next among them, claws finding throats, jaws closing on faces. Metal screamed. Pulse rifles discharged. A hunter swung a blade, and she caught it barehanded, snapped it, drove the broken half through his chest. Another tried to run. She was faster. Blood painted the ground. Body parts scattered. Marcus couldn't move. He watched through the cave mouth as the thing that had been a frightened girl tore through trained soldiers like paper. The last hunter fired her rifle directly into the creature's chest. The blast burned through flesh and armor. The creature didn't slow. It grabbed the hunter by the helmet, lifted her off the ground, and crushed the metal like foil. The scream cut off with a wet crunch. When it ended, only silence remained, just the drip of blood mixing with rain. The beast turned back toward the cave. Its chest rose and fell, covered in blood that steamed. It moved on all fours now, head low, eyes fixed on Marcus. He saw dangling from one claw a shred of torn fabric, dirty white, stained with blue blood. The bandage he'd tied around her wound. The cloth fell into the mud, still warm. The creature moved toward him, slow, purposeful. There was no recognition in those black eyes now. Just hunger. Marcus could reach his sword. It lay on the ground, blade still humming, close enough to grab. He could fight, or he could choose something else. He reached instead into his vest, fingers finding the small folding knife he'd given her days ago when she'd needed something to cut roots, to survive. She'd held it so carefully, like it was precious. He held it out now, handle first, blade folded closed. Ilara. The creature halted. For a heartbeat, the jungle held its breath. Rain fell in slow motion. The world narrowed to just the two of them, man and monster. Then from one of those black, inhuman eyes, a single dark tear fell. The transformation back was worse than the first. Bones breaking, resetting, claws receding with sounds like wet tearing, plates sinking back beneath flesh, skin paling from black to blue. Her jaw collapsed, face reforming with cracks that made Marcus's teeth ache. She screamed through it, not in rage but in agony, a sound so raw it barely seemed human. When it ended, she was on her knees before him, naked and shaking, covered in the blood of those she'd killed. Her silver hair hung in wet tangles, and her hands trembled violently. She looked at her palms, at the blood coating them, and something behind her eyes shattered. Marcus moved closer and saw it. A thin line of black remained in her left eye, like ink that wouldn't wash out. It hadn't been there before. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Marcus moved without thinking, dropping to his knees beside her, pulling his jacket around her shoulders. She flinched, tried to pull away, but he held firm. "It's okay," he said. "I killed them." Her voice was hollow. "I killed them all. They were hunting you. That doesn't—" She choked on the words, tears streaming down her face, mixing with blood and rain. "It doesn't go away completely. Every time I change, I lose a little more." She touched her eye, feeling for the mark she couldn't see but knew was there. "Ilara, they locked me in the cage to keep you safe," she sobbed. "Everyone's safe. From me. And you opened it. You opened it and now—" "Hey!" He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. "Listen to me. You came back. You heard me and you came back." "This time," she whispered. "What about next time? What about when I don't hear you?" He had no answer for that, so instead he said the only truth he had left. "Then I'll remind you." She stared at him like he'd spoken in an alien language. "You should run, while you can, while I'm still me. I'm not running. Marcus, I'm not running," he repeated and meant it. She broke then, collapsing against him, sobbing into his chest while he held her in the rain, surrounded by the bodies of the people she'd killed. They stayed like that until dawn began to gray the horizon. When the light came, Marcus stood, pulling Ilara up with him. She was weak, barely able to stand. "We need to move," he said quietly. "There might be more." There are always more. But she let him support her weight, let him guide her away from the carnage. They found a stream, clear water running over smooth stones. Marcus collapsed beside it, dunking his head under. Ilara sat upstream, washing blood from her hands with mechanical precision, over and over. Marcus pulled a protein bar from his vest, split it between them. They ate in silence. She moved to stand, swaying. "Where do we go?" "There's a colonial outpost," Marcus said, "about 40 kilometers north. Medical facility. If we can reach it, they'll lock me up. They'll help you." "They'll lock me up," she repeated. Movement rippled through the water at her feet. Something dark, sinuous, sliding between the rocks. A predator, drawn by the scent of blood. Marcus saw its surface, jaws opening to reveal rings of teeth. He lunged, grabbing Ilara's wrist, yanking her back, just as the creature snapped at empty air where her leg had been. They stumbled away from the stream, hearts pounding. Ilara stared at the water where the thing had vanished. "Why didn't you let it take me?" "Because you don't want that." She turned to look at him, something raw in her eyes. "How do you know what I want?" "Because you're still here, still fighting. If you really wanted to die, you would have let the cage stay locked. Let the hunters take you. Let that thing drag you under." He met her gaze. "But you didn't. You're still choosing to live." Her breath hitched. Then her shoulders sagged. "I'm tired of fighting," she whispered. "I know, but not today." He checked his equipment. "Today we walk to the outpost. Together. And if I can't make it, then I'll carry you." She studied him, and something shifted in her expression. Fragile hope warring with fear. "Okay," she said finally. "Together." They moved north through terrain that wanted to kill them. Plants with thorns that dripped toxins, ground that shifted without warning, air so humid it filled their lungs with liquid heat. Marcus's leg gave out twice. Each time Ilara hauled him up. Hours bled together. The jungle pressed in. Then Marcus saw it through the trees, a ridge overlooking a valley. And beyond, the colonial outpost. Prefab structures in a defensive perimeter, communication towers reaching toward the sky. Safety. Help, but also something else. Movement on the path ahead. Marcus raised his fist, and Ilara froze. A figure stumbled between the trees, blue-skinned, wearing tactical gear. He clutched his side, blood seeping between his fingers. One of the survivors from the cave fight. The hunter looked up, saw them, and his eyes went wide with recognition. His hand moved toward a communicator on his belt. Marcus drew his sword. "Don't." The hunter's fingers closed on the device. "I'll do it," Marcus said, moving forward. "Drop the comm." But Ilara stepped past him, moving toward the wounded hunter. Her eyes began to darken at the edges, silver bleeding into black. The hunter saw it happening and screamed. Pure animal terror. "No," he begged, scrambling backward. "Please, I won't. I'll just leave, I swear." Ilara stopped 3 feet from him. Her hands were shaking, claws beginning to push through her fingertips. Her breathing came in ragged gasps. She saw her brother's face in the hunter's terror. 8 years old. Her brother screaming. Blood on her hands. Her first hands before the claws. She'd spent every day since trying to prove she wasn't the monster who killed him. This was her chance. Marcus could see it. The transformation fighting to surface, triggered by the hunter's fear, by the smell of blood. "Ilara," Marcus said quietly, "you don't have to." "He'll call them," she said, and her voice was rough, distorted. "They'll come. They'll take me. Then I'll stop him, my way. Your way is mercy." She looked back at him, and her face was caught between human and monster. "He doesn't deserve it." "Maybe not, but you deserve not to become this again." The hunter whimpered, pressed against a tree, nowhere left to run. Ilara stood there trembling, balanced on the edge of transformation. Marcus could see the war happening inside her. Hunger and rage fighting against will and choice. Then slowly, deliberately, she stepped back. The darkness receded from her eyes. The claws retracted. Her breathing steadied. She turned away from the hunter, toward Marcus, and there were tears streaming down her face. "Do it," she whispered, "before I change my mind." Marcus moved past her and slammed the hilt of his sword into the hunter's temple. The man crumpled. Marcus pulled the communicator from the hunter's belt and crushed it under his boot. When he turned back, Alara had collapsed to her knees, sobbing, not from grief but from the effort of holding herself together. Even though she'd stopped the change, Marcus saw the cost. Her hands trembled for long minutes afterward. The black lines in her eyes had spread, both eyes now marked with ink that wouldn't fade. He knelt beside her. "You did it. You chose not to change." "Barely." She looked at her hands, still trembling. "It was so close. I wanted to kill him so badly. But you didn't. That's what matters." She shook her head, touching her face, feeling the wrongness spreading beneath her skin. "How many times can I make that choice before I fail? How many times until there's nothing left to come back to?" "As many as it takes." She looked at him with something like wonder. "You really believe that?" "Yes." "Then you're a fool," she whispered. But there was no venom in it, just exhaustion and something that might have been gratitude. They walked the final kilometers in silence. The outpost grew larger with each step. When they reached the perimeter, Alara stopped. "Last chance," she said quietly. "You can still leave me here. Go down alone." "Not happening." "Marcus, we made a deal. Together, remember?" She was quiet, then so softly he almost missed it. "Thank you." They descended into the valley. The outpost's perimeter sensors picked them up a kilometer out. By the time they reached the gate, a security team was waiting. 6 soldiers in light armor, weapons ready but not aimed. "Marcus Reeve," their leader said, recognizing him. "We've been trying to raise you for 3 days. There were reports of raider activity in your sector." "The raiders are dead." Marcus kept his voice steady. "And I have someone who needs medical attention." The security chief's eyes shifted to Alara, taking in her appearance. Blue skin, silver hair, the scars marking her. "Who is she?" "Her name is Alara. She was being transported illegally by the raiders I engaged. She's injured and needs help." "She's not human." "No, but she's still a person." The security chief's expression hardened. "I'll need to contact administration. She'll have to be processed." "She'll need medical attention first," Marcus interrupted. "That's not negotiable." "Officer Reeve, I understand you've been through trauma, but there are protocols." "Now!" Marcus let his hand rest on his sword hilt. Not a threat, exactly, but a clear statement. "Medical attention. Then we can discuss protocols." The security chief studied him, then nodded slowly. "Medical, then processing. But she stays restrained during treatment. Non-negotiable." Marcus looked at Alara. She nodded, resignation written in every line of her body. "Okay," he said, "but I stay with her." The medical facility was clean, efficient. They treated Alara's wounds with professional detachment, asking no questions. The restraints were soft but secure. Alara sat through the examination without protest, answering questions in monosyllables, her eyes fixed on the wall. Marcus stood in the corner, watching, ready to intervene. The doctors finished their work, prescribed antibiotics, recommended rest. Then they left, and 2 guards took up positions outside the door. "Processing will begin in the morning," one said. "Until then, she's under medical quarantine." The door closed with a definitive click. Marcus pulled a chair beside Alara's bed. She stared at the ceiling. "You should go," she said quietly. "Get your own wounds treated. Rest. You've done enough. I'm staying." "They'll lock me up, Marcus. You know that. The moment they understand what I am, I'll spend the rest of my life in a cage, just like before." "We don't know that." "Yes, we do." She turned her head to look at him, and her eyes were dry, resigned. "This is where the story ends. You rescued me, gave me a few days of something that almost felt like freedom. But now it's over, and I'm back where I started." "No." Marcus leaned forward, intensity in his voice. "This isn't over. I meant what I said. I'm not letting them treat you like an object. You're a person with rights, with agency, and I'll fight for that, as long as it takes." "Why?" She sounded genuinely confused. "What do I mean to you?" He thought about that, really thought about it. "I don't know," he admitted, "but somewhere between opening that cage and walking into this outpost, you stopped being a rescue mission and became something more, someone I care about, someone whose future matters to me. That's not a good enough reason to ruin your life. It's the only reason I need." She held his gaze and something shifted behind her eyes. Something vulnerable and afraid and desperately hopeful. "If they lock me up again," she whispered, "will you visit? Even after you realize I'm not worth the trouble?" "You're worth it," Marcus said firmly. "And yes, I'll visit. Every day if they let me." "Promise?" "Promise." She nodded slowly, then closed her eyes. Within minutes, exhaustion pulled her under. Marcus sat there watching her sleep, wondering what he'd gotten himself into, knowing it didn't matter. He'd made a promise. He intended to keep it. Morning came with bad news. The administration representative was a thin man with calculating eyes and a smile that didn't reach past his teeth. He listened to Marcus's report with polite attention, asked clarifying questions, took notes on a datapad. Then he pulled up a video file. "Before we discuss her transfer," the administrator said, turning the screen toward Marcus, "I want you to see something. This is from the hunter's helmet cameras." The video played. Marcus watched, really watched this time, as the creature tore through the team. Saw the efficiency of the killing, the casual brutality, saw himself small and helpless as the thing advanced on him. "You're protecting this," the administrator said quietly. "Are you certain she was in control? Or are you simply emotionally compromised?" Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest, doubt whispering for the first time. Then he remembered the tear, the bandage, the way she'd stopped, trembling on the edge of killing him. "She came back," Marcus said, his voice steady. "Every time. That's not lack of control. That's the opposite." "Is it? Or is it just delayed gratification?" The administrator closed the file. "The subject will be transferred to a research facility on the inner colonies. There, specialists can determine the nature of her condition, whether it poses a threat to colonial security, whether it can be treated or managed. Her name is Alara," Marcus said coldly. "Not the subject, and she's not going anywhere without proper legal representation." "Officer Reeve, I understand your attachment, but this is beyond your authority." "Then escalate it. Get me someone whose authority it isn't beyond." The administrator's smile grew thinner. He pulled up a document on his datapad. "We're prepared to offer you a deal, Officer Reeve. Sign this statement. Declare the subject posed an immediate threat to colonial security. Confirm you opened the cage under duress." He slid the datapad across the table. "Do this and your career continues. Your pension, your reputation. Refuse, and you'll be charged as an accessory to every death she caused. The hunters, the raiders, all of it." He leaned back. "Choose carefully. You have 60 seconds. Marcus looked at the document, looked at the door where they'd taken Alara. His hand moved toward the datapad, then past it. "No," he said quietly. The administrator's smile vanished. "You're making a mistake." "Probably," Marcus stood, "but it's mine to make. The law is clear on non-human entities exhibiting dangerous capabilities. She'll be transferred, studied, and, if possible, helped. But she represents too great a risk to remain in general population." "You mean you want to study her transformation? Figure out how to weaponize it?" "That's a cynical interpretation." "Am I wrong?" The administrator didn't answer. Marcus stood, his hand on his sword. "I want to see her." "That's inadvisable. The subject has become agitated. Medical staff have recommended sedation now." Something in Marcus's voice must have communicated how close he was to doing something regrettable, because the administrator nodded curtly. "Fine, but guards will accompany you." They found Ilara in a different room, smaller, reinforced, walls lined with sound-dampening material. She wasn't restrained anymore because she didn't need to be. They'd sedated her anyway, pumped her full of drugs that made her eyes glassy. When Marcus entered, she turned her head slowly, struggling to track his movement. "Marcus?" Her voice was slurred, distant. "Is it time? Time for what?" "For you to leave, to forget about the girl in the cage." He knelt beside her bed, ignoring the guards watching. "I'm not leaving, and I'm not forgetting. They're sending me away. I know. To be studied, like before." A tear tracked down her cheek, moving too slowly. "I thought maybe this time would be different." "It will be," Marcus said, though doubt gnawed at him. "I'll fight this. There are legal channels, advocacy groups." "Won't matter." Her hand found his, grip weak. "Never matters. I'm what I am, and people like me don't get happy endings. Ilara, it's okay. She smiled, and it was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. You tried. That's more than anyone else. More than I deserved. You deserve everything, Marcus said fiercely. You deserve freedom and safety and a life that doesn't revolve around fear. And I'm going to make sure you get it. How? He didn't have an answer, just conviction and fury and stubborn refusal to accept defeat. I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. She studied him through drug-clouded eyes, and for just a moment, clarity returned. The biggest mistake of your life, she whispered, echoing her words from their first meeting. Opening that cage. No, Marcus said quietly. The biggest mistake of my life would have been walking away. Her grip tightened fractionally, and then the drugs pulled her under again. Marcus stood, turning to the guards. When is the transfer? Tomorrow morning, 0600. Transport's already en route. Less than 24 hours. Marcus left the medical facility and went directly to communications. He called in every favor he was owed, contacted every advocacy group he could find, sent emergency messages to legal representatives on 3 different worlds. Most ignored him. Some promised to look into it. None offered real help. By nightfall, he was out of options. He sat in his quarters, staring at a wall, searching for solutions that didn't exist. The law was clear. The administration had authority. Ilara was being transferred, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Unless, the thought came unbidden, unwelcome, but once it arrived, he couldn't dismiss it. He could break her out. It would end his career, probably land him in detention for years, make him a fugitive, but it would save her. Marcus stood, moving to his equipment locker. His sword, his tactical gear, a spare communicator. He could access the medical facility through maintenance tunnels. If he moved fast, he could have Ilara clear before anyone realized. Then what? Run forever? Live in the outer territories where colonial authority didn't reach? It was insane. Impossible. Career suicide at minimum. Actual suicide at worst. He started gearing up anyway. The knock on his door came at midnight. Marcus froze, hand on his sword, expecting security. Instead, when he opened the door, he found Ilara. No guards, no restraints. Just her, wearing medical scrubs, eyes clear of drugs. How did you... Sedatives don't work on me for long. She stepped inside, closing the door. My metabolism processes them too fast. I've been awake for hours, just pretending. Ilara, if they find you here... I know. She moved to his equipment locker, taking in the gear he'd laid out, understanding immediately. You were going to break me out. I was considering it. That's insane. Probably. She was quiet for a long moment, just staring at the gear that represented his willingness to throw away everything for her. I can't let you do that, she said finally. It's my choice. No. She turned to face him, and her silver eyes were determined. You've already given up too much. Your security, your career prospects, maybe your life. I won't let you sacrifice anything else. Ilara, let me finish. She took a breath, steadying herself. I've spent my whole life being afraid. Afraid of what I am, what I might do, what others might do to me. That fear turned me into something less than human even before the first transformation. Made me accept cages and sedatives and isolation because I thought that was all I deserved. You deserve better. I know, her voice cracked. You showed me that. For the first time in my life, someone looked at me and saw a person worth protecting, worth fighting for. And that changes everything. I don't understand. I'm not going to run. The words came out firm, final. I'm going to that research facility. I'm going to let them study me, test me, do whatever they need to do. They'll lock you in a cage, maybe, probably. She smiled, and there was something brave in it. But maybe not. Maybe they'll actually help. Maybe there's treatment, therapy, something that can help me control the change. And even if there isn't, I'll face it, without fear this time. Because you taught me I'm worth more than a cage. Ilara, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. She moved closer, and he saw tears gathering in those silver eyes. Because the alternative is you throwing your life away for me. And I can't live with that. I won't. It's my choice, Marcus repeated, but the conviction was draining away, replaced by something that hurt worse, understanding. Promise me something, Alara whispered. Promise me you'll move on, that you'll keep patrolling, keep helping people, keep being the person who sees others as worth saving. Don't let what happened to me destroy that. I can't promise that. Then promise you'll try. She took his hand, squeezing gently. Please, let me do this one brave thing. Let me choose this instead of having it chosen for me. Marcus wanted to argue, to insist they run anyway, to refuse her sacrifice. But looking into her eyes, he saw the same determination he'd seen when she'd fought to come back from the transformation, when she'd walked toward the outpost despite knowing what waited. She was choosing herself, choosing dignity over fear, and he had no right to take that from her. I'll visit, he said, voice rough, every chance I get, and I'll fight for your rights, your treatment, your future, every day. I know you will. She rose on her toes and kissed his cheek, soft, brief, weighted with everything they couldn't say. Thank you, Marcus, for opening the cage, for seeing me as human, for giving me back myself. Alara, it's time. She stepped back, moving toward the door. I should return before they realize I'm gone. Otherwise, this gets complicated for both of us. He wanted to stop her, wanted to lock the door and refuse to let her go. Instead, he watched her leave. The door closed with a soft click, and Marcus was alone with his gear and his futile plans, and the knowledge that he'd just let the bravest person he'd ever met walk toward her own imprisonment. He didn't sleep that night. Morning came too fast. Marcus stood on the landing pad at 0530, watching technicians prep the transport. His official role was observational, just another patrol officer seeing off a prisoner. The truth felt more complicated. At 0550, they brought her out. She wore prisoner transport gray, hands cuffed in front of her, flanked by guards who kept their weapons ready but not aimed. When she saw Marcus, something passed across her face. Recognition, gratitude, sorrow all mixed together. The administrator was there too, data pad in hand, making official pronouncements that Marcus didn't hear. All he could see was Alara, walking toward the transport with her head high, not flinching, not hesitating. Choosing this. As she reached the ramp, Marcus saw it. Her eyes flickered, silver to black, just for a heartbeat. She stopped, turned, met his gaze, fought it back. The darkness receded, but the effort left her trembling. The black marks in her eyes were more visible now, spreading like cracks in glass. She was still fighting, every second, every step, and she'd chosen to fight alone. Then she smiled, small, genuine, free, and boarded the transport. The ramp closed behind her. Marcus watched the craft lift off, engines burning bright against the morning sky. It climbed into atmosphere, accelerated toward orbit, became a point of light among the stars. Gone. He stood there long after it vanished, feeling the weight of everything that had happened settle onto his shoulders. Officer Reeve. The administrator approached, datapad clutched importantly. I need your full report on the incident. For the records. Marcus turned slowly, meeting the man's eyes with an intensity that made him step back. Her name, Marcus said quietly, is Alara. Not the subject, not the specimen, not the prisoner. Her name is Alara, and she's a person. Remember that when you write your reports. He walked away before the administrator could respond, heading back toward his quarters, already composing the first of what would be many legal briefs, advocacy letters, and formal complaints. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning, and he'd made a promise. 3 months later, Marcus stood in a waiting room on an inner colony world, surrounded by sterile walls and the quiet hum of medical equipment. It had taken everything he had, 73 days of bureaucratic warfare, 42 formal requests, 16 legal challenges, and more credits than he wanted to think about. But he'd finally secured visitation rights, not as a patrol officer, as a private citizen exercising his right to visit a detained individual under his advocacy. The door opened and a technician gestured him through. 15 minutes, she said. No physical contact. Security will be monitoring. Marcus nodded and entered the visiting chamber. Alara sat on the other side of a transparent barrier, wearing medical whites that made her blue skin seem brighter. She looked different, Healthier, stronger, her hair clean and styled, the scars on her arms beginning to fade. When she saw him, her whole face lit up. Marcus. She moved to the barrier, pressing her palm against it. You came. He matched the gesture, hand to hand with only polymer between them. I promised. I wasn't sure you'd be able to. Her voice caught. They told me you've been fighting for me. Legal challenges, advocacy groups, pressure on administration. Is that true? Every day, he confirmed. How are you? Are they treating you well? Better than I expected. She glanced around the room as if checking for listeners. The research team, they're not what I feared. They're actually trying to help, working on therapies, neural inhibitors that might let me control the change. It's experimental, but there's hope, real hope. Relief flooded through him. That's good. That's really good. They say if the treatment works, I might be released. Under supervision, with regular check-ins, but released, living in society, having a life. Tears gathered in her silver eyes. Because of you. Because you wouldn't let them forget I was human. You did that yourself, Marcus said quietly, by choosing to come here, by facing your fear instead of running from it. That took more courage than I've ever had. They talked for the remaining minutes, sharing small details, his continued patrol work, her progress in therapy, the slow grinding of bureaucracy towards something that might be justice. When the technician announced time was up, Ilara pressed her forehead against the barrier. Come back, she whispered. Every chance I get, Marcus promised, until they're sick of seeing me. I don't think that's possible. He smiled, and for the first time since opening that cage in the jungle, he felt something like peace. The fight wasn't over. It might never be over. But they were fighting it together now, not as rescuer and victim, but as two people who'd found something worth protecting in each other. And that, Marcus thought as he left the facility and stepped into the sunlight, was enough. For now it was enough. An alarm sounded somewhere inside the facility. Marcus stopped, turned. A new arrival. Agitated. Dangerous. Security rushed past him, weapons ready, voices sharp with urgency. Through the glass doors, Marcus saw it. Another cage. Smaller than Ilara's. Bio-sealed. The same symbols he'd seen in the Raiders' hauler. Something inside screamed. Not human. Not quite animal. Something in between. Marcus's hand moved toward the door. A guard blocked his path. Sir, you need to leave. Security protocol. What's in the cage? Marcus asked. The guard hesitated. Classified, but off the record. Something they found in the outer colonies. Experimental subject. They're transferring it to where? Same facility as your friend. Research wing. Marcus looked at the cage, looked at his badge, looked at the guard. The guard's hand moved toward his weapon. Then slowly he stepped aside. Marcus walked toward the entrance. Not running. Not afraid. Just a man who'd learned that sometimes the biggest mistake of your life is also the only choice worth making. Still a patrol officer. Still someone who opened cages. Still someone who believed people were worth saving.